Hi, and welcome to CoBB. We know this isn't normally what you hear at the top of any episode of ours so far, but this one is special. We're coming up on our 50th episode, and Sudeep and I really want to thank you for listening, for the comments you've sent, for the feedback you've given us, and especially for the suggestions of the topics you've made, because that's where we sometimes struggle because we don't know what to talk about. And we've leaned on you to tell us what you want to listen. And that's helped us a big deal. And going forward, we'd love to organize this a little better.
So, guys, the idea is to try and get to know you and your preferences better. And to facilitate that, we'll be putting a form in the show notes as well as in the comments wherever you're listening this podcast from. We request you to share something about yourself as well as some of your preferences and feedback for the show, and that will help us customize the content and make it even more useful for you. Looking forward for this small help from your end and hoping to provide you content that you will continue to love and continue to listen. Thank you very much.
Welcome to CoB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharvan Raghavan.
I know the podcast can be a little self effacing, but to put it on the title seems a little dangerous to me. I know there's a movie, Jim Carrey movie called Dumb and Dumber, and you picked sounding dumb and sounding smart. It almost sounds like you and me, and the audience very clearly know who's who. Why are we doing this today?
Can you be even more self obsessed, Sharan? We talk about marketing in general and marketing careers, making brands, etc. Why can't this be also about the same thing?
Oh, to answer the first question, I can be more self indulgent, but when it says sounding dumb, sounding smart, sounded very autobiographical of ourselves. But getting to the point, isn't our podcast, CoB, about making all marketers sound smart? And you're talking about people actually progressing in their careers by sounding dumb and smart. Where are we
Yes.
going with this?
So our podcast is about making marketers successful. Now,
Right.
if success, the path to success goes through dumbness and smartness, I don't think there is any problem with that.
My bosses will agree, ex bosses. So let me put it in your context, right? The way
Hmm.
you describe it. I've heard you say that the only job of marketers is to sell conviction. Now, how can you sell conviction without sounding smart?
Okay. So let's first rewind and refer back to when I said marketers don't sell products, they don't sell services, they only sell convictions.
Right.
And it has three phases to it. The first phase is you create conviction within your head, within your heart. Therefore, you convince yourself. Now, second phase is you convince people around you, which is your own team, your management, etc. And then the third phase is that you convince the world at large. So, therefore, the only job we do is to sell convictions. And you're right that the only method to sell conviction is to sound genuine or smart, and ideally both.
Genuinely smart.
No, these are two separate adjectives I used, and
Right.
and thoughtfully so. So therefore, you have to sound genuine, or you have to sound smart, or ideally you should sound both genuine and smart.
Got it. And when you say genuine, you're talking about being able to empathize with other functions that you work with as marketers.
No, I actually meant that when somebody listens to you
Hmm.
talking very passionately
Hmm.
about a particular subject,
Got it.
that passion has to come from somewhere deep within your heart.
Hmm.
It has to be genuine for the other person to buy your conviction.
Right. You can't convince them without being convinced of it yourself.
Correct.
Got
Correct.
it.
Yeah. So therefore, in this business of selling convictions, there are two sides to the same coin.
Mhm.
There is a side of forming conviction, there's a side of selling conviction.
Right.
The side of selling conviction will always have or always put significant pressure on marketers to sound genuine, insightful, and smart.
Right.
Yeah. So therefore, that goes without saying.
Got it. And this is with whom? The stakeholders you work with?
All sorts. So this is with your team, your management, and later on with your consumers.
Right.
Yeah, your consumers would buy stuff from somebody who seems knowledgeable or who seems to know a little bit better,
Right.
whom they could trust. So therefore, you have to carry that expertise, so as to say. Yeah,
Right. As a mark of competence.
as a mark of competence. So
Got it.
therefore, uh, the selling conviction side requires you to be genuine, insightful, smart, etc. But you will be able to reach there only via the other side of the coin.
By being dumb.
No, the other side of the coin is about forming conviction.
Ah,
Yeah, so form conviction, sell conviction, there are only two sides to the coin.
got it.
Now when you're forming conviction, that is where the dumb part comes in. And
Hmm.
yeah, and I'll talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, so therefore you have to sound dumb, and then you have to sound smart. So that was the reason I picked this up.
All right. It's about sounding dumb and not being dumb.
Yes,
Got it.
let's talk about the other side of the coin.
Hmm.
I think most of our listeners would understand this side, which is about selling convictions.
Right.
Most of them would have done it. In fact, my genuine belief is that everybody, and I mean everybody, is a marketer, because at some stage in their life, in their personal or professional life, they would have sold conviction, or they would have at least sold themselves with conviction.
Hmm.
Yeah. So therefore, selling conviction, everybody would have done. Now come to the forming conviction side. And on the forming conviction side, you know first thing that we have to appreciate is that uh, to develop that kind of conviction about your consumers, you have to develop almost what I can call as telepathic empathy with your consumers,
Okay.
which means understand them very, very well, and you know possibly even hypothesize on their behalf as to how will they react when they would be presented with something. The idea is to be able to genuinely appreciate what their joys, sorrows, fears of their consumers are, what drives their decisions in life, and therefore the same conviction, same attitude, same belief would drive the decisions of that particular consumer in the case of your category also.
Got it. So, if I were to rephrase what you call telepathic empathy, could it be that I need to get to know my consumers so well that at a subconscious level, I can actually predict or even hypothesize how they would react in certain situations or to certain stimuli?
Correct. I genuinely feel that if you look at movies, for example, that is where you see directors and actors developing that kind of telepathic empathy. They're able to portray characters from different hues of life by genuinely empathizing with them, and also bringing about their reactions, their actions alive on the screen, and they honestly make us believe that they are actually that character. Possibly the best example of somebody developing genuine empathy with their character, with a consumer. Now the forming that conviction, forming that telepathy, because it requires you to genuinely understand your consumer. Now for that, what I have seen by my experience, and what have been taught to us over a period of time, is that you have to really start your interaction with any consumer by asking really basic and dumb questions.
Hmm. Okay.
And when I say dumb questions, as in you will possibly ask very, very simple, very, very basic questions to really get them comfortable, to have to understand their point of view from the very start.
Right.
And where it starts becoming difficult, Sharan, is that for somebody who would have spent a few years in marketing, you would have possibly met hundreds of consumers
Right.
of similar age, similar social strata, etc. And you can't help but start developing patterns in your head.
Hmm.
Yeah. So while there is a pattern in your head, it becomes difficult because you don't want to expose that pattern or that hypothesis to that consumer, and you want to start from that really basic, really dumb question, and then take it from there.
Is to maintain, in another way to say that, to maintain your curiosity at a zero based level,
Yeah.
no matter how many consumers you meet.
Correct. Correct. And it comes from two three different reasons. First
Mhm.
is that every consumer is different. Yeah, you might want to put them in cohorts, but we each one of them comes with a little bit of their own personal story, personal understanding. So therefore, if you maintain the same curiosity, childlike curiosity with each one of them, you tend to learn better.
Right.
Yeah. Second is that in my experience, when I've met consumers across various geographies in India,
Hmm.
I have seen that most of us, and this is about Indians, most of us are eager to please others. Yeah. So therefore,
Right.
if you show a really, really bad ad to a consumer, they will never say this is very poor. Most of them won't.
Right.
Yeah. Unless you are testing possibly in Kerala. Yeah. Where many of them are fairly blunt with their feedback. Yeah. But most of the Indians will sugarcoat their feedback. They are eager to please. Yeah.
Right.
And hence, if during the course of interaction you expose your hypotheses, your patterns to them, you will end up coloring their responses.
Right.
Yeah. And hence, if you want to retain the sanctity of your immersion, if you want to genuinely understand the consumer, and if you want to really deep dive into their real thought process, you are better off keeping your hypothesis, your patterns at bay, and start from ab initio. I've had kids, for example. So in Mumbai, once I was interviewing two Jain kids. We were taught that when you're meeting with consumers, your brand or your category should come at the fag end of the interview,
Hmm.
because your brand is at the center of your universe, but they're a speck in the universe of the consumer.
Right.
Yeah. So therefore, be genuinely interested in your consumer. Your category would come towards the end. So therefore, whenever I used to talk to kids, I used to talk to them about their school, parents, friends, cartoon characters, etc., etc., and their snacking habits.
Hmm.
And from snacking, I used to go towards chocolate, etc., etc. So I reached the snacking stage, and I've already bonded with these kids over Benton characters, their names, which ones do they think is very cool, etc. So we're kind of friends now. Yeah.
This is during your gems days.
This is during my gems days. Now,
Hmm.
obviously, for a 40 plus year old guy saying that he was genuine friends with two kids, everybody would think he's joking. But, over a period of time, I could build good
Rapport.
relationship with these kids in 15-20 minutes,
Hmm.
because I developed genuine interest in cartoon characters, in Ben 10, and everything that they used to like. So therefore, we could speak the same language.
Right.
But coming back, so I asked them, okay, what all do you like in snacking? And they give me some list of 5 6 7 things. Now this was the first set of kids that I had met in a long, long time who did not name Lays in it.
Hmm.
And I was
Okay.
very curious. Yeah, okay, how come there is no Lays in it? And I asked them, "Acha, you guys don't eat chips?" So both of them look at me. Are हम जैन है ना? I said, so what? तो again they gave me that look saying, अरे आपको नहीं पता? आप इतने बुद्धू हो? So these are kids, like, so
Right.
they're about 8 year old, 8 or 9 year old. Yeah.
Right.
So, ab itne buddhu? I said, yes. So then they went on and explained to me that Jains don't eat anything which originates from below the ground, etc. Oh, that is how I connect. Oh, okay, okay. Sorry, I completely missed that context. But
Right.
it was okay. I they thought I was dumb, and I was completely okay with this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And there will be many moments like these where they will think, your consumer would think that you're dumb. It's such an obvious thing.
Hmm.
Yeah. But you should be okay to ask dumb questions, understand them, and show genuine interest in understanding them.
Right.
Yeah. uh, the second part of this, Sharan, is, and for those who've been in marketing for some time now, they will appreciate, is that when you're trying to understand your consumers, you're not the only one who possibly goes and meets them. You will have a team, somebody else who goes and meets them. You will have an agency partner who is trying to do the research at the same time.
Right.
Yeah. And therefore, you also want the benefit of their experience.
Hmm.
You will go talk to them, you will understand about the consumer better. Even then, even in those moments when you are trying to understand your consumer, my advice is that be okay to sound dumb.
Hmm.
Yeah. To your agency partners, ask dumb questions, ask very very basic questions. If they don't have an answer, then they know that these are the questions that should be asked, so the next time they will do better.
Thank you for listening to CoB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharvana Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobcast.net. That's CoBBCAST.net.
Could you go a little deeper into that, Sudeep? I understand the point of sounding dumb to the consumer
Yeah.
because what can seem obvious might actually bear an insight
Yeah.
from the way they explain it.
Yeah.
Why is it important to also be brave enough to sound dumb to even your research partners or the agency partners with regard to the consumer?
See, if all of us have heard that adage called five whys lead to an insight.
Hmm.
Yeah. So therefore, what you're trying to do is you're trying to peel the onion, ask a lot of whys to anybody who is offering to give you some knowledge about your consumer. And
Right.
what you want to do is understand the fourth or the fifth why.
Hmm.
And what you also want to do is inculcate this habit in each one of them,
Hmm.
so that when they are sitting in front of the consumer, they are also able to do that why chaining.
You're setting the culture
Yeah.
within the team by asking the whys yourself first.
Correct. Correct.
Got it.
And that's the only way of understanding the deepest beliefs, desires, attitudes of the consumer.
Got it.
So now, by doing your immersion yourself, by getting a download from the agency, etc., you've now got significant information, and you will then obviously work on processing that information, thinking about it, etc., etc. And then you will possibly think about some consumer truths or human truths that and finally you will try and mix it with your brand purpose, proposition, etc. Yeah. All of this will then therefore create some kind of thought structures in your head, so that you could sound smart to people whom you are supposed to sell your conviction to.
Right.
Yeah. So therefore, by doing all of this, you will be able to complete the other side of the coin, which is about forming your conviction.
Hmm.
And that then enables you to go to the other side of the coin, which is about selling that conviction.
I think this brings to mind one insight, not necessarily an insight, but something that happened while I was on Tang. What happened was the concentrates category was largely the category was declining, and the ready to drink beverages were taking the place in home consumption. So people were moving from making a concentrate led beverage into ready to drink beverages at home. So when we spoke to kids, kids were like, "No, I prefer the bottle wala drink."
Hmm.
And the mother was like, "The kids only like that." He said, "Maybe it's just convenience, convenience." And then, but that was the hypothesis we had. But the fact that we pushed further to say, why do you like a bottled beverage? Why do you not like the concentrate? Concentrate is something that you grew up with having. And why do your kids prefer the bottled beverage and all that? Then the kids told us this, that when the mother buys a pack of Tang, she is almost duty bound to make it last a month. So she keeps adding lesser Tang at the beginning of the month to a glass of water, and then adding more Tang to the glass of water later on in the month. So the taste was always varying.
Hmm.
So the kids couldn't explain why the taste was varying,
Hmm.
but they said it doesn't have the same taste always.
Ah, okay.
So just by asking, because we had our assumptions because of the category data,
Hmm.
but just talking to the kids and the mothers, we realized a half kilo pack of Tang meant a 1 month pack in her mind. That's
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
And therefore, she was titrating for every glass of Tang she made.
Hmm.
And
Correct.
that was a very interesting insight we came up with.
Yeah. Yeah. Correct. So therefore, it almost like a pantry purchase for her,
Right.
and she was therefore trying to make it last.
Hmm.
Correct. Okay. Excellent. No, I think, and all of the marketers that are possibly listening to the podcast would appreciate that through consumer immersions, they would have had one or the other aha moments.
Right.
Yeah. And before the aha moments comes the dump moments. I can recount the time when I was working on gems. Gems used to make it work with younger kids a lot, and we had a lot of hypotheses, and we used to hear from a lot of kids that they like gems because there are so many of them. All of them are from of different colors, so they can really play with their friends, exchange. Many of them used to believe that each color has a different taste. uh, then they would find gems. The product is playful because it has a crunchy shell and a soft center.
Hmm.
Yeah, so there were a lot of reasons for which they used to love gems.
Right.
Now in this journey, when we looked at data, we realized that there were scores that we were trying to find about consumption of gems
Hmm.
and the imagery of gems amongst older kids.
Okay.
So therefore, the consumption of gems and consumption of 5 star amongst older kids were almost at the same level.
Wow.
But the imagery was so different. The imagery on the factor of for me was really, really low in gems.
Right. Because not it's not seen as the one for older kids.
Yeah. And this got confirmed when we went and spoke to older kids. A lot of them were closet consumers of gems. They would eat it at home, but they would never dare to eat it in school or in college along with them, etc. Yeah, so that's where, and and during those immersions, when I was trying to find why did they like it, I started from the same assumptions as younger kids. So I would
Hmm.
ask them the same question: do you find it playful? They would look at me that this uncle is mad. I would ask them, do you think that the color, each color has a different taste? They would again look at me. Yeah, so I sounded dumb a lot of times. Lot of times. Yeah. So, but over a period of time, we kept re-articulating our hypothesis.
Hmm.
We kept checking with them, and one of the things that we found, that apart from the fact that they still like the taste of gems, they like the interplay between hard shell and soft chocolate, which no other chocolate was providing
Hmm.
even
Hmm.
at that age.
Hmm.
So that all was like. But one of the key things that they used to like was the fact that it was something that reminded them of their playful times,
Hmm. Nostalgia.
nostalgia. So when you grow up, somehow there is this pressure to grow up, yeah, to live up to this definition of growing up,
Right.
which is about saying that everything about you has to be purposeful, You have to be disciplined. You have to set an example. You can't be seen joking around. You can't be seen horsing around, etc., etc. So there's this unnecessary societal pressure, and within that, then they look for releases.
Right.
Sometimes with their friends when they do mischief, pranks, they rebel. Sometimes in the close confines of their home, where they consume products which remind them of their older times. And some of the things that fall in the same bucket are their hobbies.
Huh.
Some of their hobbies which they hold on from the very childhood again reminds them of their playful times, where they were able to experience all of this with gay abandon, right? So therefore, so that's what we learned, and hence, over a period of time we gave it a smart articulation. And the smart articulation was that uh, gems is not childish, it is childlike, right? So people like the childlike enthusiasm. People don't want you to be childish.
Right. This is the Raho Umarless
Correct,
campaign.
correct. And
Ah,
from there came Raho Umarless.
I love that campaign.
Yeah. So again, we were able to sound slightly smart because we sounded really dumb hundreds of times. So that's the idea about being a successful marketer, that if you will become successful only when you are able to sound smart, sound insightful, sound genuine. But for that you would have to go through the journey of sounding really dumb to a lot of people,
Right.
and that's my hypothesis.
No, I completely agree. I don't think it's just a hypothesis. I think it's the truth also. So to sum up, excusing my kickoff to the episode, is that you need to sound smart when you're completely convinced. You need to be convinced with you must have the conviction before you can convince others.
Yeah,
And therefore you must have the confidence and the ability to reason why and carry the insights with you, and therefore be smart as a marketer how you convince your other stakeholders and even consumers with their communication. But in getting to the conviction, in building the conviction, you need to be willing to sound dumb, the sense that have the courage to challenge everything, including the points that seem almost obvious to everybody, and keep asking your five whys till you get to the basic truth of why certain things are or certain behaviors are the way they are.
yeah,
And that helps you find the insight which will eventually build the conviction and help you sound smart.
correct. Well done.
I've sounded smart.
You did sound smart, and you proved that this was a clickbait headline.
Absolutely. So Sudeep Chawla also does clickbait headlines.
Again, my if my job is to sell this conviction, I need to find a good way to sell this conviction, right?
Good one, Sudeep. Thank you so much. I think it's a very, very useful and a very smart way of putting down humility in marketers, which is not always a common trait.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to CoB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharvana Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobcast.net. That's CoBBcast.net.